Hi, it's Michelle with the Medicine Couch. On this channel, I like to explore all of the different possibilities open to PAs and NPs. Today I'm actually going to be talking about a non-clinical role. I'm going to be interviewing a PA who is a Medical Science Liaison, also known as an MSL. She's going to tell us just what an MSL is, what qualifications you need to get a job as an MSL, and what kind of things you do on a daily basis. Stay tuned to learn all about this role and see if it may be something that's right for you.
Hello! Welcome.
So today I have a special guest with me. I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Melinda Gottschalk. I'm a PA and I'm an MSL, and I am also adjunct faculty at a PA program.
So for those of us who don't know what an MSL is, can you tell us what that stands for and what it is?
Yes, MSL is a Medical Science Liaison, usually working for a pharmaceutical company, could be working for a device company.
So when you say you work for a pharmaceutical company or a device company, I think that a lot of us think, oh, then you're out there selling those products. Is that what a medical science liaison does or not?
No, as a matter of fact, a medical science liaison cannot sell.
Oh, great.
That's against the regulations, pharma rules, for a medical science liaison to sell. We are there to exchange scientific information with the healthcare providers.
Okay, so what does that mean, exchange scientific information?
Well, for instance, you talk about the chemical makeup of the product, or you talk about the use of it, or what makes it different. You just talk about what makes your product better, and it could be a special ingredient in your product. It could be a special use for your product, but you are the expert on that product, and you work in a medical science liaison team, or a medical science team, and you go out and you talk to healthcare providers with the sales people. But if it starts becoming off-label, the sales and the medical science liaison have to split up. So like you have to take the healthcare provider aside because you can't talk off-label in front of the sales reps.
Okay. So I've seen, I've been in clinics where I've had drug reps come in and things, but I don't know that no one's ever introduced themselves as a medical science liaison. Are we seeing them in clinics most often and we just don't know it, or are they just few and far between, or are they in more specialty offices?
Well, it could be in any office because it's for any drug or any medical device, but they may be introduced as, this is my special guest.
Okay. Or
I brought somebody in special with me today. And so without specifically using medical science liaison, or they may even be like they call them KOL, it's like a high-level provider that they bring with them that talks about a certain product.
Okay. And so are you mostly then working in clinic settings, or are you also like I've been to dinners and different things that have been hosted by the pharmaceutical companies? Are you doing those things, or are you just working in clinics generally?
No, it's all those things. You go to clinics. I have 19 territories west of the Mississippi and the Gulf Coast. So I go a lot of different places. It is going to conventions, like I'm going to the American Headache Society's Headache Symposium in Scottsdale. The salespeople can stand behind the table, and the medical team has to stand in front of the table. It's very particular. We can't be behind the table because then that's perceived we're selling.
Oh, okay.
So we stand in front of it. We also do ad boards where we'll be putting a product out, and we want to hear about key opinion leaders. That's what that KOL means.
Oh, okay.
We'll invite them from all over the nation and bring them in, and we'll show them the product and show them the advertisement for it and ask them what they think about it. So we do that kind of thing too.
So you have a special area that you work in, right? What is it that you focus on?
So I am in headache. That's what I was in my last position was in headache. And so that's what the focus is. The medication is a acute headache medication. Because I had spoke on it several times on headaches, and because just some exposure that I have nationally, they heard about me, and so that's how I got it.
Well, that's how you got the job. So you were actually approached by some company?
Yes, I was approached by a headhunter.
Oh, okay.
That was looking for someone for them.
Do you feel like that's how most of the pharmaceutical jobs are found, like through headhunters? Like, do the pharmaceutical companies usually use headhunters in your experience?
They do. a lot of times, but the big ones like Biogen or Allergan, they may not. You can just look on their websites.
Okay. So if somebody was interested in a medical science liaison job, it's not a bad idea to contact a headhunter and have them...
Yeah, if you know a headhunter that is in that field, they're pretty specialized also.
Okay, so you'd have to find one.
Yeah, but the main thing is that you have to become an expert in something, because then we're different than pharmacists. Most of the time, pharmaceutical companies hire PharmDs for these positions. But if you want to be in it as a clinical person, then you have to be an expert in that field, or be perceived as an expert in that field.
So you mentioned you had done some talks on headaches. Where were you presenting these talks? Like what examples of things?
I've done them at APA, and I've done them at the state level, and at other states. And so that's the main thing. People a lot of times ask me how I got into being an MSL, and I just said I had a lot of patience, because it takes a long time to get on as one, but also I developed a skill set that was what they needed. The company I work for decided they didn't want to just have PharmDs. They wanted to have a clinical viewpoint in their medical science team. So they were looking specifically for a PA or an NP. Doctors are probably a little more expensive than what they wanted to pay, so they were looking for us, our level of pay, but they wanted somebody that worked in the field, that knew people in the field, and that had experience in presenting talks, PowerPoint presentations, that kind of thing. So that's very important. So you have to develop that skill set and then sort of become known for that.
Okay. So I take it that most people who would have a chance at being a medical science liaison are probably those who are working in a specialty?
Yes, but I think that if you were in family practice and you used a specific medication that was a brand name, it's got to be brand name, you could be approached for it, because it's not just the specialties that prescribe brand name medications.
True.
Like antibiotics and stuff, they have MSLs also.
Oh, okay. Writing papers, I guess, maybe about your topic, or articles, I should say, maybe not.
That'd probably be a way to get into it also.
Yeah. And speaking about your topic, maybe if you're in family practice, kind of making maybe a little specialty niche within your practice.
Right.
Like you're the go-to person for that
for diabetes, or you're the go-to person for congestive heart failure, and then you need to volunteer to speak at your state chapter, and then eventually volunteer to speak at national things. Join your specialty national organizations and speak at their conferences. Orthopedics, and a lot of them have their own national, and they have their big conferences. And you can volunteer to speak. They always need speakers. That's the thing people don't understand.
Oh, okay.
They always need speakers at all of these things.
So network, right?
Networking.
Network online, network going to the conferences that the topics that you're interested in. So you really need to be somebody who has an interest in a particular area. You have to really enjoy talking about that particular topic. Like for you, headaches is something you've worked with for a long time and stuff. So it's not like you're just going to see a job for some urinary product and you're like, I think I'll go rep that. I mean, you have to, or not rep it, but to be an MSL for it.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, in the qualifications, it usually says to be an expert in this area.
Yeah. Do they normally have like a time frame, like how many years experience, just that they can demonstrate somehow that you're an expert in that?
I think a lot of it also, as soon as you get the interview, I think it's with a lot of things, you sell yourself in your interview.
Right.
So let's say you're able to get an interview, but you only have maybe 2 years in something. You just got to know what you're talking about and be very personable when you talk to them and tell them, oh yeah, I like to do presentations. I speak at these conferences. I do this, I do that, and just really sell yourself on the interview is how you would.
So I'm hearing that personality trait for somebody to be an MSL is probably somebody that's a little bit more outgoing, because you have to, I assume, at these conferences or even in the clinic, you have to be willing to kind of step forward and engage with people and talk with them. I'm
kind of an introvert, extrovert kind of person, so I have a little bit of both, but I'm also someone that is a joiner.
Yeah.
Just my upbringing, I had to join a lot of different things because we moved a lot, so because if you join things, like if you join AAPA, if you join your state chapter and then you get involved in leadership in those, then it just kind of happens.
Yeah. So what is a typical weekly schedule for you? are you always out and about on the go, or do you work in an office? What do you do?
Well, just remember, I've only been in MSL during COVID. So I think I'm just now getting a perspective of what it's really like. But you have to, the other trait you have to have is that you have to be very disciplined, because you don't have anybody making your schedule for you. So theoretically, you could do nothing all day long. And I at first had to really start disciplining myself and making sure I do. So my typical day is, I have 19 people that I interact with regularly, sales reps, and so I meet with them all once a month, and so I'll have hour-long meetings with them throughout the month. I keep them pretty much on Mondays, and then I write healthcare providers that are on our target list, and then sometimes I have virtual meetings with them, with the sales rep. Sometimes I have phone meetings with them, with the sales rep. Sometimes I have them alone without the sales rep. And then sometimes I go on trips. And so sometimes I have a lot of territories. So I can be gone for 2 days every single week, or I could be home for a solid month.
Oh.
It's very varied.
Right.
And the thing is, you can set your schedule. So if you've got doctor's appointments that week, you can say, I can't go out of town this week. I need to work in town this week. So it's a really good schedule, but you have to work it. You're not successful as an MSL. You're not successful with anything if you don't put time in.
Right. So how are there barometers that you have to meet? I mean, how do they, since you're not selling, there's not like sales figures that you can meet. How do they determine, or how do you determine if you're meeting your goals?
Well, we have metrics that we have to meet. Like I have to go to 2 territories a month, but I go to more than that. I have to talk to 20 healthcare providers a month. And then another matrix is I help train other sales.
Oh, okay.
The sales people. The MSLs participate in the training of new sales reps. So that's another one. And then the other one is that I'm really working on hard is that I need to contact every PA and NP organization in the United States and find out if they need speakers, if they want somebody to exhibit at their conferences, and that kind of thing. So that's the sort of matrix that we have. But they do look at if our efforts with the healthcare providers is increasing the sales for the sales reps.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I mean, if everything we're doing is making no difference at all, that's not good.
Right. Right. I didn't think about that. They can measure through sales, like when you're involved, when you're not, if there's...
Right, and they do look at that, and it is true that when you have the MSLs involved, they go up. I had a conversation with the doctor the other day, and I was telling him the exact same thing that I know the sales rep said, but maybe a little more clinical, because they're not clinical. So in more clinical terminology.
The reps are not clinical usually, yeah.
So saying it a little bit more in clinical terminology, and the doctor turned to the rep and he said, why haven't you told me this? And she goes, Doctor, I have told you this. But she didn't tell him in the same way that we told him. Because sales reps are really smart and they're college educated people, but they're not medical. Maybe some of them are, but the ones that I work with aren't.
So MSLs traditionally has been more of a path for PharmDs, right, to get into. Most people who are a PA have a master's degree. Is that what they're looking for, or do you feel like it helps to have a higher degree?
I've seen on the ads that they have for it, they want doctorate level.
Okay.
I started getting bites when I was finishing my doctorate. I didn't get any bites before then, but when I could put on my resume that I was having my doctorate in June, then I started getting bites.
And what did you get your doctorate in?
I got a Doctor of Medical Science with a emphasis in leadership.
Can a PA or an NP be an MSL?
They can. When I first started trying to be one, I'd been to one of those ad boards, and I was so fascinated with the MSLs that were there. They were pharmacists, but I was so fascinated. I go, how do you get in? They go, oh, well, you got to be a PharmD. Well, that was about 5 years ago, and so I thought, well, that stinks because I really think I would like that. So I just kept looking at things, and then I found out that there were some PAs that were, so I asked them and said, how did you get into it? And they told, well, I was an expert in that field. I said, oh, well, then I'm going to start doing that. So then I started applying for them. So PAs can, but it takes certain companies.
Yeah.
So I think the more forward-thinking companies are hiring PAs and NPs for part of their science team because they know we bring a different perspective to the conversation. Because sometimes when we're in conversation and they'll say, well, we want to say this and then, I go, well, that's a bad idea because that is going to turn the provider off.
You're an educator, really. You're not, it's a difference between being a salesperson and being an educator. So I can see why that role would be fun and interesting because I like to educate and I could see going in and telling people, did you know about, like, this is so cool, this is what this does, know, and things. Is that kind of how you feel about it?
Yeah, it is. And, I learned a lot when I was training for this job once I got the job. I mean, I don't know that I ever remembered what a PK was and what the C-max and the T-max and under the curve meant and all that. Yeah, and so I learned a lot because those pharmacists are smart. They know their medicines. And so I had two PharmDs educating me, and then the other pharmacist that was a MSL that got trained at the same time I did, she knew all that stuff. So I had to up my game and learn about things that I didn't know about. Right. So it's challenging because you're learning a whole different side of medicine.
Right. You feel like they did a pretty good job of their onboarding and education?
Oh, yeah. I got hired October 12th of last year, and I didn't really start talking to sales reps until the end of December.
Yeah, okay.
So I had a long training, and it was fantastic. We had assignments that we did where we had to, like they would give us a problem with the specific drugs that we sell, and then I had to look at the studies and pull out, because you got to know the studies that made your drug be approved, right? So you had to pull out different information from them, and it was just, to me, it was extremely interesting.
Oh, that's cool. So what is you also work as adjunct faculty, so what is the time commitment of being an MSL? I mean, is it a 40-hour-a-week job basically, and you're doing this other stuff in addition to it, or is it so flexible that you can work around it?
I'm a bit of a workaholic, is what I'm told. I don't feel like I am, but they think I am. So I will say that you could work your MSL job 40 plus hours a week, and that be all you have time for. But as a PA, I want to work as a PA also. Okay. And so a PA educator fits into it because what I teach telemedicine with a university in Pennsylvania. And so the students contact me and I just fit them in to times that I have open. And then I teach at where I got my doctorate at AT Still. I teach in the capstone project, in the capstone portion of the thing. So the time commitment is if I had little kids at home, it might be harder. Okay. Although I know many PAs that have little children at home, and being an MSL is the best thing that ever happened to them.
Because of that flexibility?
Because of the flexibility of it. So it depends on your personality.
All right. So
I have lots of irons in the fire.
So what about salary? Is it comparable to a full-time PA? Is it tend to be a little bit more or a little less?
I think it depends on the company that you go to work for. My salary was a little bit higher. It was a little bit higher than what I was making as a PA. It wasn't a lot higher, but I got a bonus, which I didn't ever really get as a PA. So, and I'd only been there a half a year, and I got a really healthy bonus. So nice. The bonuses are nice. But my salary, my paycheck went up a little bit, but not a lot.
So in general, it's probably pretty comparable.
Right, pretty comparable. And I've been a PA since 1992, so I was probably on the higher range of salaries anyway as a PA.
So we talked a little bit about the flexibility being a cool thing, something that is nice about an MSL. Are there any other things that you think are really great about this type of position?
I think that especially if you've been a provider a long time and you just want to do something different, it's still in medicine, but it's totally different. Yeah. And so it can rev your engines up again and make it life interesting again than seeing the same patients with the same problems over and over again for years and years and years. So it's learning something different, but you're still in medicine, and you learn a whole bunch of you meet different people, but you still get to hang out with your other people too.
Right. So you still get to be around that clinical environment.
Right, because I still go to the same PA conferences, so I still see my friends and still hang out with the same people, but then I got a whole group of other people that I know now.
With any position, normally there's things that are great and things that are not so great, or things that may be challenges. What are you finding?
I felt a challenge was that at first I didn't realize I had started a different career, because I just thought it was going to be more like being a PA still, but it's not at all. So that's one thing that you have to know when you get into it, is that you're not going to be working as a PA anymore. So if you want to still work as a PA, you're going to need to find a moonlighting job to keep doing that. So that's why I teach.
Oh, okay.
But the other downside to it is that it's not as stable as the PA world.
Okay.
So pretty much, if we weren't having a pandemic, you don't get laid off as a PA. You have a job forever. And it's different in the business world. This is a business job. Mm-hmm. And so if sales aren't good, you get laid off. Okay. And it could be pretty quick notice. So that's the thing. You have to understand it's not as stable as a job in medicine, where you're needed because there's a cajillion patients for you to see.
Right. And there's a clinic on every corner.
There's a clinic. You can find a job somewhere else the next day. And so, yeah, but it's not like that in the MSL world.
Kind of getting back, we talked a little bit about that people could potentially find jobs through headhunters. But I think you said something about you were seeing postings on job boards. That's what got you interested in it?
They're on Indeed and on Glassdoor.
Okay.
They're on there all the time, and they may be headhunters that are posting them. I don't know.
Right.
But some of them look like they're the company, because it'll say Allergan, it'll say Biogen, it'll say the Johnson & Johnson. So you just have to read them to see what the area of the country it is. But also, some of them, even though they are Texas and Kansas and Oklahoma and Louisiana, but they want you to live in Dallas.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Or it may be like mine, I just need to live in Texas.
Okay. Anything else that you think that we haven't talked about that people might be interested to know?
I would just like to close with being an MSL is that it is a very interesting job, and it's for someone that wants to do something different in medicine instead of doing clinical, or instead of teaching, or in addition to clinical and teaching, because you could still work at CVS on the weekend if you wanted to. So it's a job that is totally different, but it's still in medicine. And it's just really interesting. If you're the type of person that likes to study, and you like to look at research, and you like to interpret that research into a talk, then this is the job for you.
Okay. So if you're interested in being a medical science liaison, you need to know, I think that I would guess that you would need to identify what topic, mm-hmm. what condition that you are really interested in, learn as much about it as you can, be as active in your clinic and in societies, national societies, try to give speeches and talks about this particular topic to get your name kind of known. And so it may take a couple years to build that up, but and then there's no guarantee that you'll find a job in that that a pharmaceutical company is going to be looking for a position, but you've at least put yourself in the right area, the right arena to possibly get one of these jobs.
Right, and just perseverance. It took me years to get one, and I had to develop my skill set after I had advice from another one. And then it took years to find a job where they wanted a PA or NP, because quite frankly, they usually want a PharmD or a doctor. Right. But there are those that are catching on that PAs and NPs make excellent MSLs.
Right.
And so I would say just keep plugging until you finally find one.
And talking with the reps that come in, the pharm reps, and if they have medical science liaisons with them, or if you're at conferences, finding these people and talk to them.
All about relationships.
Yeah. Well, that's great. It's so wonderful to hear from somebody who's in a different position. There's a lot of people that are interested in non-clinical jobs right now. So thank you for sharing all the information with us.
Glad to do so.